Let's say you've come to the conclusion that your situation is abusive or toxic. This is going to be what you do next, okay? Your golden rule moving forward is going to be to move in silence. What I mean by this, your abuser does not need to know that you have discovered they're abusive. They don't need to know the things you've learned about abuse. They don't need to know the tactics that you've learned about. Keep that information away from your abuser. The reasoning for this is because the more knowledge you have on their tactics that isn't expressed to them, the more you're able to kind of maintain control over your reactions in those moments, okay? And you're also definitely not going to want to let them know that you are trying to leave. The reason for this, and I don't say this to scare anybody, I say this to help people protect themselves to the best of their ability. The sad reality is, statistically, when leaving a domestic violence situation, your risks of harm are increased. Your risks of fatality are increased. And so the reason that I say this is because if you move in silence and find a way to leave without expressing to them that you're leaving, you are actually going to be able to keep those statistics in a safer range, okay? And here's going to be a couple of resources, phone numbers, and contacts that you can contact to get resources to leave, okay? So first of all, we're going to have your domestic violence hotline. This is going to be for the entirety of the U.S. country. I don't know about other countries' resources. If you need specific countries, you can comment. I'll research them, or you can Google them. And so the domestic violence hotline I'm going to put right here. These are going to be great for... I've called them when I was in domestic violence just to like explain to them my situation and cry to somebody when I wasn't ready to leave yet, and nobody pressured me to leave. They just listened and they were supportive, and that was extremely, extremely helpful. And they just kind of told me like, this is abuse. And I honestly needed that from somebody who knew about domestic violence. So that's a great resource for that. They can also connect you to more resources like financial assistance, homing assistance, all sorts of different things, okay? 211, that is going to automatically connect you to your local state in the US, and they're going to have community information and resources. So not only are they going to be able to help you with domestic violence resources, they're also going to be able to help you with SNAP, like food assistance, emergency financial assistance, daycare assistance, all sorts of stuff like that. Resources to help you get a job, all sorts of stuff, housing, sheltering for low income. They have all sorts of resources. I highly recommend that. Another one, I didn't even know these places existed until I was in the situation that I needed them, okay? You have your domestic violence shelters, which I was aware about, but there's also resource centers. And I didn't know about that until I found out from a family member's friend of a friend. And turns out there's these resource centers that not only can help you with financial assistance, daycare assistance, they can help you with educational information, they can help you with having support, affordable or free counseling. They have all sorts of things. They're able to do free legal aid or discounted legal aid. They have so many different resources that honestly is fundamental when you're trying to get out and be okay after a domestic violence situation. And yeah, I really think those centers need to be communicated about more because, like I said, a lot of people don't know about them. A good way to look that up is just look up DV Center near me in Google. If you are worried about looking up any of these topics on your phone or home computer, if you are worried about your history being recorded, you have a few options. You can ask to use somebody else's devices, or you can, in the library, they usually have free computers for access. Great resource for these kinds of things. Also, you know, if you work, you might be able to look up stuff like that on the work computer. You have options. You have options to try and contact different domestic violence resources. So please do not let a fear of your abuser seeing your history hold you back. There are roundabout ways, okay? This one's going to be huge, okay? So while you want to move in silence with your abuser, it is so important for you to tell your loved ones the truth. As somebody who's been in domestic violence, I know full well that we're likely to lie to our loved ones about what's going on for many different reasons, and we may hide the reality of what's going on at home, okay? And I know that over domestic violence, you tend to feel isolated from your loved ones for, again, many different reasons. And I know that when I reached the end of the domestic violence relationship, I didn't think I had any friends. I didn't think I had any loved ones or supportive members. I thought that my family didn't really support or love me, and I genuinely thought that I was alone. And I decided to call a family member, not because I thought they would be there for me, but just because I didn't know what else to do. I just kind of called the first person that came to mind and cried to them. And I genuinely didn't think that person was going to help me. And it turns out that person was the reason I was able to get out. They were able to, my phone cut me off, but that person was the reason I was able to get out. They were able to move me to a safe location in another state and help support me until I was able to get back on my feet. And the reality is, you may have people who are willing to do things like that to help you, and you have no clue because of how the abuser has worked in your head that people don't care for you. Okay, like I said, I genuinely thought that I was not the kind of person who had family or loved ones who would do that for me. And sure enough, I had somebody come through, and not only come through, but above and beyond come through for me. Okay, for your own well-being and mental sanity, I know that a lot of people talk about stonewalling. I agree with stonewalling, but I'm going to add a little something extra because I feel like this part isn't spoken about enough. Stonewalling is going to be the instance of when somebody is trying to abuse and trigger you, you choose not to react. You choose to regulate yourself in that moment and kind of just blankly respond of like, okay, yeah. And the point of this, keep in mind, this might anger your abuser a little bit more, especially at first when they're not understanding why you're not reacting all of a sudden. But the intent is not to make them angry. The intent is to save the energy you would spend arguing, to save the energy you would spend with the emotional reactions, and put that energy into getting out. Take that energy away from the abusive situation and pour it into the act of removing yourself from the situation. So if you're going to use something like stonewalling, please use it very mindfully to make sure that you're using it solely to take your energy into removing yourself. If you're just using it to pour energy into making them angry or upset, that's not something that I can personally recommend at all. Okay? This is another thing, is I think that recording is so important. Ideally, somebody would be recording before deciding that the situation is abusive, but if you haven't, it's never too late to start recording. Okay, you can audio record, you can video record, you can screenshot, you can take photos, whatever it is. I just suggest that you be as sneaky as possible with it. Recording phone calls, all sorts of stuff, okay? Try to record everything you can. If there's police reports, try to get copies. If there's CPS reports, doctor reports, or photos of physical marks on your body, keep them, okay? And what you're gonna wanna do when you take these records is immediately you want multiple copies. Immediately. One thing, I'm going to type this one out as well, is going to be a resource. I do not work with this woman in any way, shape, or form. I am just a huge believer in what she does. She has created this AI device, Persephone.ai, and essentially it is a safe space to record your documents. There's a lot else to it. I don't know all the ins and outs. She'll be able to tell more about it, so go ahead and check out her account for more information on that. Again, we don't work with each other. I'm just a believer in what she does. So this is going to be a safe space to store your documents to make sure that your abuser cannot access them. I also highly recommend sending your records to trusted loved ones. And like I said, keeping multiple copies. When I left my abuser, I had multiple copies on my computer. I had it on my phone. I was in between two phones, so I had it on both phones. I had it on a hard drive. I had physical copies. I'm talking so many copies. I had copies saved to my Google Documents, to my Google Drive. I had documents on my computer in multiple files. And my goal was that I had so many copies that even if my abuser found out and deleted every single one he could find, there would still be more somewhere. That was my goal with that, was to have so many copies that there was no way that he could track them all down. Okay. Another thing, this was this is almost out. I'm gonna do a part 2.